Today we're going to learn how to create a complementary color scale in acrylic paint. As you painted your original cylinder, hopefully you remembered to think of it like the cylinder you drew in your first drawing class. There you were taught not only to see the light and dark of the cylinder to create values, but you were also taught to use a value scale to compare the values to make your work stronger and more convincing. To this beginning cylinder painting in monochromatic value. As you can see, this individual created a cylinder with rather convincing values from very light whites to very deep violet, and many ranges of lavender in between. To do that, the individual who painted this not only looked at a cylinder in real life to observe how the light was affecting the object, but she also thought about breaking those values into a value scale and thinking of the cylinder in terms of a diagram to figure out where the light, medium, and dark values needed to be placed. In the drawing class, we created a range of value from 1 to 9 on a value scale and then compared that to a diagram of the cylinder that listed the values numerically. Here, the artist only used 3 values, a light, a medium, and a dark violet, to create the underpainting. Now that the underpainting is complete, you need to create a complementary value scale in order to understand where the light, medium, and dark values of the complements will go on the cylinder in the next layer of value on this cylinder painting. Again, we are going to be using those as glaze layers so that we can see the original lavender or violet through the other color we use. Remember, the reason we are doing this is to create a richness of color in your work that will make every painting you create from now on stronger than anyone else who is afraid to mix colors. We are doing this on the cylinder painting because it's a simple object and not a painting you totally care about, so taking a risk here, even if it doesn't work out, will greatly improve what you know and can do as a painter. Before you can start the glaze layers, you need to understand how the complement of the color you selected will affect the initial color you started with for this painting. As you already know from our color theory unit in drawing, the colors created from mixing complements are a brown or sometimes even gray. While you may think those colors are rather unappealing, I want you to notice that those colors that give you the ick are in many great paintings created by several master artists. To illustrate the difference between someone who uses complements versus someone who doesn't, here is a painting created by someone who didn't mix complements in their painting versus another who did. Hopefully you can see the additional depth in the painting of the complementary use versus the rather well done value of the painting that didn't mix complements in glaze layers. Just like the underpainting, you should create 3 containers of the complementary color, a light, a medium, and a dark, of the lighter complement. In this case, the artist used yellow as it is the complement to violet. Once you have those colors, you can begin mixing the complements together to create many versions of the brown or gray that will exist between those 2 colors. Hopefully this will make you realize how many colors there are in a painting when there are many colors in the painting, if we are creating about 15 colors for this complementary value scale. To start the scale, you should start with the lightest complement. In this case, it would be yellow. You'll paint that yellow on the black board, and then you will start mixing the 2 lightest colors together. In this case, it's the lightest yellow and the lightest violet. When you begin, you should paint the lightest color on the board. It was again the lightest yellow. As you start creating the different values, you should start with mostly light yellow in your paint palette and then add the smallest amount of violet until you see the color has changed slightly. When you paint it, you need to make sure you can see the difference from the original light yellow, or you will have to add more violet in the palette. Once you get enough of a difference to see, paint a little of that color on the board immediately beneath the first color you painted. You should then do this 2 more times in separate paint palette wells, and then paint the lightest lavender on the bottom of that row. Please realize that if you did not use yellow and violet for your painting, you would use the lightest of the 2 color complements that you have for your painting. You will continue this process for the medium and dark paint colors, continuing to use the paint palette as you go. rinsing the brush in water as needed to make sure you don't contaminate the paint. So again, you will take the lightest of the medium yellows, paint that color first, and then mix 3 variations that get progressively darker with a little bit more purple of the medium purple into the paint wells, and then paint the medium purple on the very bottom. Do that same process for the third time with the darkest of the complementary colors. Part of the reason that you take the colors from the original containers you've mixed them in and use the palette is so that you have enough color to completely cover the board. This is why you are taught to mix enough color in a separate container. Remember, you can use a small container or large container depending on the size of your painting, and the paint palette should be used to get the muddier colors of paint that enhance the color value and unity in whatever you're painting. If you refuse to do this workflow suggestion, you will potentially have problems later because the painting will take more time as you will have to color match continually. Remember, it was also suggested that you write in your sketchbook what colors and how much of that color you use to create each color so it's easier for you to color match later. For example, if you used 2 paintbrushfuls of purple and 1 paintbrushful of orange, that's how you should be mixing each time you create whatever brown or gray resulted from those 2 colors being mixed. Without doing this, you will struggle or have such large issues that you may give up completely. Let's not go there. Remember, you like making art. Being slightly methodical here will benefit you greatly. When you're done with the complementary value scale and the paint is dry, it is suggested that you number the value scale like we did in drawing, but this time in color. The numbers probably won't go from the lightest to the darkest. They will kind of be at a diagonal, and you have to squint your eyes to see which way to number them. The number sequence will not be the same for every single value scale you create, so you may need assistance from another person or your instructor in order to number your scale. Then you should create another diagram from 1 to 15 or whatever number of different colors you've created, so you should be able to successfully understand and demonstrate how to blend complementary colors together in a painting. This same concept can be applied to any painting you create, which is again why we are doing this. It may be a little difficult now, but you will be glad you did this on this simple painting because it will make the rest of the painting class easier. And your paintings will have greater depth and appeal to anyone viewing your work. Now, go create your complementary color scale so you understand fully how your complementary color will affect the original monochromatic painting you created. You got this!